Hello, this is Dr. Janine Elias, and we are going to review your Multifactor Leadership Questionnaire form. I am going to show you both a sample participant report as well as a report that I did. So let's start with our sample report. So with our sample report, the Hardiness Resiliency Gauge, the Multi-Factor Leadership Questionnaire reviews the levels of the tendency of leadership, transformational, transactional, or laissez-faire. And what we are looking at here is you have transformational leadership in the 5 I's, rewards achievement, monitors deviations and mistakes, fights fires, and avoids involvement. So this is the overall score, and you will also see these categories here, and you will see whether they are effective, ineffective, active, or passive, transformational, transactional, or passive avoidant leadership styles. So this page 3 will tell you what are the contents of the report. And then as you go through and the introduction, and this assessment takes a little bit more time to spend with this assessment and see what the outcomes are and what improvements or shifts you would like to make within your scores for leadership. And what you're going to see is the transformational leadership and the 5 I's, which are listed here, transactional leadership and the 2 main categories of transactional leadership, and passive avoidant behaviors and the 2 main characteristics there. Then I recommend you read this. It explains to you how the report creates the measure and frequency of the styles of leadership and outcomes. And then you will see when you move to page 6, this is where it will give you feedback. Now, the reason why I pulled up the sample report and my report that I did, so if you scroll down, so notice when I get to page 6, on the sample report, there's nothing listed here but the first word. And then on my report, you see 3 additional sentences. And these 3 additional sentences are things that can be used for you to improve your leadership style. They would be suggestions to help you in the coaching relationship and things for you to take into consideration when you identify which particular area you would like to focus your attention on. It gives you additional suggestions. And each section has a different color. And those colors go throughout the program. So it then also shows you leadership outcomes. And so you're looking at, here are your leadership tendencies, or these are the tendencies. And then it talks about the outcomes that come from whatever your tendencies are. So some of the outcomes of leadership is generates extra effort, is productive, has a high level of effectiveness, generates satisfaction, and that their satisfaction within the followers and their leadership, and they're enjoying good social skills and social interaction that's very positive. So then again, we have our overall model that we saw in the beginning, and then making the most of your report. So page 10 goes into ways for you to make the most of your report. It tells you more about the report. So there's a bit to read here, and it's very powerful information. I recommend that you read it with a highlighter. Again, print this assessment up and do not print it double-sided so that you can write on the back. And as you read it, things will come to mind. So take your pen and jot down notes and write down any questions or thoughts that you may have. And then again, making the most of your report continued. So it gives you ideas of things that you can do to develop your leadership style in working with your followers. And then as you continue to go down, now I'm going to go back to the sample report. So as you go down to the overall outcomes, so this is where this individual in the sample report scored. So notice that this highlighted green area is the sweet spot for a transformational leader, where we want to be in our transformational leadership tendencies. So and this was created according to research validated benchmark, ideal frequency of all 5 transformational behaviors should be a fairly often rating of 3 or greater. And so what we have here is, depending on where you fall in these categories, we want to start moving you this way. And all of the information that we saw prior to getting here is suggestions of how to do that. So as you open up the assessment or the report that you get, and you're reviewing your report, you might want to drop back to page 15 and have a peek to see where you are. And then the first few pages, it was listed there as well. And then go through and read everything after you kind of see where you score. And then transactional. So see where scoring lower in transactional. So again, these are the benchmarks. So monitors deviations and mistakes. So this person is scoring within this benchmark. So it's important to note here in both of these areas with transactional leadership. Transactional leadership is not bad. Transactional leadership is essential for the effectiveness of any type of leadership. Things need to be done, and they need to be done in a certain way and in a timely manner. The key to being transformational is having a balance in both transactional and transformational leadership styles. So in some instances, transformational leaders might think to themselves, well, I don't want to monitor my employees because I know that they know what they're doing. I don't want to focus on mistakes. I want to focus on what's working well. Well, you have to focus on both. Just focusing on one is not a suitable outcome. It's very important to be able to focus on both. And the reason why we must be able to focus on both is because if we are not focusing on both, we don't see where the opportunity for improvement is. If someone is struggling, we need to help them. So we need to see where they're struggling that's not coming from a punitive perspective. And this goes back to, here's another area where our hardiness resiliency gauge is very powerful. So if you recall in the hardiness resiliency gauge, which we will be working with as well in our group or individual training segments, the hardiness resiliency gauge looks at challenge and seeing challenge as opportunities for development. So if somebody fails or makes a mistake, or they deviate from the expectations, we need to see what's happening, why is this happening, and view it as an opportunity for improvement instead of something that's debilitating. And so that's the difference of a transformational leader. Now, another thing, rewards achievement. We cannot be rewarding achievement if we're not monitoring their behaviors, whether they're deviations or mistakes, or we're also monitoring what's going well. So we do want to reward achievement. This is very, very important. And there's a variety of ways to do that. And we'll be talking about that as we move through our program. Now, passive laissez-faire behaviors. So these, we want to have less of these. So this person is scoring a little high in this area. Often we will find leaders that are being passive, but they don't realize how it's being perceived by their followers. Very often they might be viewing their behavior as a positive. So they might decide, an individual might decide that they believe that the people that work with them and for them are competent, qualified, professional individuals that don't need to be monitored and that have the capacity to do their work just perfectly well and don't need additional input or feedback. And you might feel that you're empowering your followers, and your followers might feel lost and left floating in a sea like a cork on a wave, bouncing all over the place, not sure where to go, and you're not giving them any direction or feedback. So this is why it's very important to not avoid involvement. And then we also want to reduce fires. And so when we're having high levels of fires, there's another video that you'll be watching as we go through our process on goal setting, where we're looking at Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And we're looking at the quadrants of productivity. And quadrant 1 is fighting fires. And quadrant 2 is doing behaviors that are very important, but they're not urgent. And if we don't do enough of quadrant 2, everything ends up in quadrant 1. So we're constantly putting out fires. And so we will be talking about this as well. So this area we need to reduce. This area over here, we need to do some increasing. And so these are some things to look at. Now, outcomes. So we want outcomes again to be over here in this green. So we want to generate extra effort. We want to have everyone being productive, and we want folks to be satisfied and enjoying their process. So these are some of the things that we will be exploring in your leadership styles and techniques. And it's important to take into consideration that when we look at transformational tendencies, there's a reason why transformational leaders are viewed as the white unicorn of senior level leadership. Many leadership training programs or organizational training programs do not support the 5 I's. And so we are going to break down what it takes to become more transformational in your leadership style. We're going to use this assessment along with the perceived stress scale and the hardiness resiliency gauge. And we are going to look at all 3 of them in conjunction, and we are going to set goals for the coming weeks of areas that you would like to see a shift or develop in your coaching program. So then you have comparison with the norm in transformational leadership. So you will see your rating, your group's average rating, and the universal norm. So the group's average that we're looking at, the group average that I put, because this is a international assessment, I put in the average from North America. And so that's the group that this is averaging from. And so again, you will see your comparisons with those norms and see where you would like to have a shift. And then here again, it tells you how you scored, what your score was in these areas from 1 to 4. And then you will see, so here it says complete information appears in the actual form. So if we scroll down here, so notice it tells you, so notice this information is filled out here or it's not filled out here. And then it has resources and suggestions on the bottom. So that is your multi-factor leadership questionnaire report. So please take some time and review all 3 of your assessments prior to our next meeting. Do be mindful if for some reason you are unable to review all 3 of them, do at least take a peek, familiarize yourself with them if you don't have a chance to review them in any detail, because we will be doing breakout sessions with our assessments in our group coaching program. So it has been an honor and a privilege to be here with you today, as always, and I look forward to seeing you in our live segment. Have a wonderful day.